In our last episode, we explored how subtle chronic symptoms may reflect hidden interference, beginning with windworm and plum pit chi, early patterns of energetic obstruction. But what happens when that interference deepens? When it weaves into the nervous system, the fascia, even the personality? In classical Chinese medicine, this pattern was called gu. It refers not just to parasitic infestation, but to systemic corruption, blurring the line between host and invader. As Henry Fruehauf explains in gu syndrome in modern clinical practice, gu, by definition, is not a regular parasitic infection, but a condition that weakens the entire organism by having become systemic in nature. Gu is not simply a parasite of the flesh. It is a parasite of the field. It clouds clarity, distorts the will, and reshapes the psyche. Some ancient sources call it possession. Others, a curse. Today, we might call it something else entirely. Gu was feared not just for its effects, but for its intelligence. It was said to mirror the host, adapt to their essence, and build itself from their patterns. In some regions, gu was deliberately cultivated. Across stories and texts, one theme recurs: gu is hard to detect, hard to name, and nearly impossible to kill. Fast forward to today, and we find an explosion of syndromes that defy clear diagnosis. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, Epstein-Barr, mold illness, autoimmune flares, Morgellons S. ropeworm, medically unexplained symptoms. Often patients are told, "We don't know what this is." Or worse, "It's all in your head." Gu therapy has the potential to become a valid approach to a wide variety of disorders. Notes Fruehauf, especially those that present with mysterious mental and physical symptoms that cannot be clearly diagnosed by allopathic or standard TCM. Treatment requires more than one herb. It demands a layered protocol, targeting both parasite and terrain. In the classical era, physicians used unusual methods to detect gu. One was the rhino horn foam test. Powdered horn was added to food. If foam appeared, gu contamination was suspected. While we clearly no longer use rhino horn, the principle remains: foam as a sign of systemic invasion. Modern researchers studying biofilms, mucus expulsion, and filamentous growths may recognize the pattern. In my own lab work, I've observed foam emergence in tissue and structures that match the behavioral and morphological traits described in gu traditions. Could gu represent a frequency-based parasite? This idea is not unheard of. Organisms like Plasmodium, Candida, and Borrelia have shown measurable response to acoustic and electromagnetic disruption. Other examples, such as Trichomonas vaginalis, respond to energetic fields during bioresonance therapy. In both classical and modern views, the gu-like mimic exhibits mirror-like adaptation, layered life stages, a tendency to entrain to brainwaves, mimic tissue and feed on emotion and attention. Its nature is both biological and energetic. A hybrid pathology, Fruehauf compares it to oil that seeps into flour. It cannot be extracted alone, only transmuted through purification, resilience, and field restoration. The ancients feared gu because it was hard to see. In this century, it may be even harder to believe. But the pattern continues. The foam still appears. The threads still emerge. The mimicry still deepens. And again, we are told, there's nothing there. It's delusion. It's not real. But what if that disbelief is part of the illness itself? What if dampening of consciousness is occurring? In our next episode, we enter the margins of medicine and the margins of the body. We'll examine ropeworm phases and their eerie similarity to Guy-Morgellons disease, embedded fibers, crystalline filaments, and dermal mimicry, and the disturbing question of whether our air, water, food, and fields have already been seeded. The ancients feared gu because it was hard to see. In this century, we have the advantage of microscopy, but belief isn't required. Observation is.